How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Kuftes Zayin, Daf 116 of Masechta Yevamos. Friends, Daf 116 is pretty cool. It talks about what, if you find out that, Shimon died. So, can you assume that Shimon, is, maybe there are a lot of Shimons. I know that this is that Shimon who died. So, that's an interesting question, friends. So that's going to take us halfway through the daf about, and then, there's going to be some more details about when a woman testifies that her husband, of course, in the words of our great chaver, Reb Dennis Gura, was dispatched to Wellwood. So in that case, a little more details about when we can allow her to get remarried. Okay, so on Daf Kuftes Vav Mud Beis, we got some work to do still. We got about 15 lines left to do on Daf Kuftes Vav Mud Beis. The reason why we didn't go further than that yesterday was because there isn't really a good stopping point until we get a big nice chunk into Kuftes Zayin. So we'll do a little bit from Kuftes Vav Mud Beis today. Interesting shaila, you ready? So by the two dots, about 15 lines before the end of the page, Yitzchok reish gelusa bar achte der beivai haba. That Yitzchok reish gelusa, lav davka, he was the reish gelusa. It could have just been his name or something like that. But whatever it is, Yitzchok reish gelusa bar achte der beivai, who was the son of the sister of Bevai. So what's that? The nephew of Bevai. Alright. He was traveling from Kurtova to Aspamia, Vishachiv, and he was dispatched to Wellwood. So they sent a message from there. So they sent a memo, right? They sent a message that Yitzchok reish gelusa barachte der Bevai was dispatched to Wellwood. Fine. So do we have to be concerned that maybe there are two Yitzchok reish gelusa barachte der Bevais? Seems like a pretty specific name. The question is, do we have to be concerned, right? Can Yitzchok reish gelusa barachte der Bevai's wife say, wow, okay, it sounds like my husband was dispatched to Wellwood, and, can she get remarried? Or do we have to be concerned maybe it was a different Yitzchak reish gelusa barachte der Bevai who died? That's the shaila. Interesting shaila, right? Abaye Omar Chashinan, Rav Omar Lo Chashinan. Abaye says that we do have to be concerned that maybe there are two. Rava says we do not. Omar Abaye Mino Aminala. Abaye says, how do I know that we do have to be concerned? Gito de ishtikach ben ardoya. Because there was once a story, an incident, where there was a get, a bill of divorce, that was found in Nahar Doya. Uchsiv, and it said in this bill of divorce, Bitzad Kalonia Mato, that next to the city of Kalonia, Ono Androlinoi Nahar Do, I Androlinoi the Nahar Dein, Patris Vesarchis Yos Plonis Insi, I am divorcing my wife, so and so. So, we basically found a bill of divorce that says that in a certain place, I, Androlinoi, the Nardain, am divorcing my wife, so-and-so. And then that bill of divorce was found. So Avur de Shmuel sent the Shaila to Rabbi Yehuda Nisiya to find out, do we have to be concerned that maybe there is another Androlinoi minardo? Vishalach le tibadik nardoya kula. And guess what? Reb Yehuda Nisiya sent back to Avur de Shmuel. Check all of Nardoya to see if there's another Androlinoi Nardoy. And therefore, says Abaye, you see that we do have to be concerned about a duplicate. Virave Omar, Rava responds to that anecdote, that incident brought by Abaye as a proof. Im Isa Yibadi Kola Olam Iboile. Says Rava, if it were true that we had to be concerned about a duplicate, Androlinoi minardoi, so then it shouldn't be enough to simply search Nahardoya. We should have to search the whole world over to see if there's an Androlinoi Nardoi. Rather, says Rava, look, really, you don't have to be concerned about a duplicate. However, Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya wanted to be respectful of Avua de Shmuel, so instead of saying, no, your concern is irrelevant, he said, look, check Nardoa, see if there's another Anjolinoi Nardoa, but he's really just doing it out of respect for Avua de Shmuel. Says Rava, the truth is, you really wouldn't have to check at all, and the proof is that if you did have to check, then it wouldn't be enough to simply check Nardoa, you'd have to check everywhere to see if there is a duplicate. Omar Rava, says Rava, Mino Amina Lo, how do I know that we do not have to be concerned about duplicates? Because there were two documents, like monetary documents, that were found or that were used in Machoza. And it said in them, Chavai bar Nanai v'Nanai bar Chavai. Okay, so basically, Chavai bar Nanai shows up with a document that says that somebody owes him money, and Nanai bar Chavai shows up with a document that says that somebody owes him money. Ve'agbei behu Rava bar Avua zuze. And Rava bar Avua said that you can use these documents. And says Rava, look, Chavai bar Nanai is a pretty popular name. It's not such a popular name nowadays. I don't think I know anybody named Chavai bar Nanai or Nanai bar Chavai, but apparently then it was a very popular name. It's a very popular name. And nonetheless, Rava bar Avua, or I think there's other gears to say Rabba bar Avua, because that would make sense, I think. So let's say that. I think it was goes about the Caesar Rabba bar Avua? Yeah, Rabba bar Avua. So let's say Rabba bar Avua. And Rabba bar Avua collected with these documents, right? He wasn't concerned, well, there's a lot of Chavai bar Nanais and Nanai bar Chavais. How do I know that this document that you're producing is yours? Maybe a different Chavai bar Nanai is owed money. And says Rava that was not a concern. So clearly we don't have to be concerned about possible duplicates. Ve'abaye, and Abaye will respond and say, in that case, l'may neichushla, what was the concern? Ili nefila, what we're concerned that maybe, there are two Chavai bar Nanais, let's say. One of them rightfully had this document and he lost it. And guess who found it? The other Chavai bar Nanai found it. So is that what we're concerned about? And therefore we can't actually extract money, we can't use it to extract money because maybe this was a document not for this Chavai bar Nanai, but for the other Chavai bar Nanai who lost it? Chavai bar Nanai, if he has a document saying that he's owed money, he's going to be careful, he's not going to lose it. Maybe we're concerned that the rightful Chavai bar Nanai deposited this document by the wrongful Chavai bar Nanai and said, hey, wrongful Chavai bar Nanai, keep an eye on this document that says I'm owed a whole bunch of money. I got to go out of town. I mean, that would be very silly to take a document that has your name on it and to lend it and to ask somebody with the exact same name as you to watch it for you. I mean, that's risky. He can just use it. He could just collect, you run the risk of him simply taking it and collecting it. So, right, Kevin Dishmei Kishmei Lo Mafkid Gabe. And if we're concerned that maybe the rightful Chavai bar Nanai deposited it by the wrongful Chavai bar Nanai and says, hey, keep an eye on it, that would just be silly. He wouldn't do that because it's obviously risky because there's nothing stopping him from just collecting it. So, my Omar Duma Mosarle, and maybe you're going to say, well, maybe the rightful Chavai bar Nanai gave it to the wrongful Chavai bar Nanai and now he's going to want it back and he won't be able to get it back. But truth is, Osos Niknos b'Mesira, that documents are acquired through transfer. And therefore, when the rightful Chavai bar Nanai gives it to the wrongful Chavai bar Nanai, you can't get it back. That's just the rule. So there really isn't anything, says Abaye, that we have to be concerned about in this case. And therefore, if a Chavai bar Nanai comes with a document that says that he's owed money, we can assume that it's his document. Fine. So that's the machlokas between Abaye and Rava there regarding do we have to be concerned about multiple people with the same name. Abaye says be'etzem yes, and Rava says be'etzem no. Ha'ugita de'ishtikach besura. There was a document that was found in Surah. Okay. Uchsivbe Hochi. And this is what was written in the document, but in the divorce document, in the get. Okay, and this is what was written in the get. Besura Mata, in the city of Sura, Ono Onon Barchia Na'ardo, I Onon Barchia the Nahardayin, Patris Visarchis Plonis Insi, I am divorcing my wife. So and so my wife, right? So we see a few things, right? The guy's name is Onon Barchia Na'ardo. He's in Surah. He's divorcing his wife with a certain name. Uvodku Rabbanon Misurvad Na'ardoya, and the rabbis checked from Surah to Na'ardoya. Velohava Onon Barchia Achrina Levar Me Onon Barchia Mechagra. There was so they checked to see that apparently there are two Onon Barchias. There's one who we think wrote this document, but there's another one, Onon Barchia Mechagra. And it's possible that maybe he is the one who wrote the get. But the thing is, the Hava ben Ardo. But this get was written in Surah, and this Onon Barchia Mechagra was in Nahardo, a different place. And witnesses even came and said and testified, and there were witnesses from Nahardoya who testified that the day that the divorce document was written in Surah, Onon Barchia Mechagra was not in Surah. He was with us in Nahardoya. So it seems pretty clear that who's the one who authored this get? It was the other Onon Barchia. And therefore, if Onon Barchia's, if the initial Onon Barchia's wife has this get, so then she's divorced. So here's the case where there are two Onon Barchias, but it's pretty clear that we know which one is the one who wrote the get, because the other one wasn't even in Surah that day, and it says that the get was written in Surah. Amr Abaye, Afladidi da Amina Chayshinon, Hochalo Chayshinon. Says Abaye, look, I was the proponent earlier who said that we are concerned about multiple Yitzchak Reish Gelusa Bar Achte de Rav Bevais. Over here, I'm not concerned about duplicate Onon Barchias. And we have witnesses who are testifying that Onon Barchia Mechagra was in Nahardoya that day. My Ba'a B'Surah, what could he have possibly been doing in Surah? Memele was the other Onon Barchia, who is the one who was divorcing his wife. Amar Rava Afladidi de Lo Chayshinon, Hocha Chayshinon. Rava says Punkt Fakert, the opposite. He says, Rava says, even though I was the proponent who says that we do not need to be concerned about a duplicate Yitzchak Reish Gelusa Barachte de Rav Bevai, but over here, I am concerned that maybe Rav Onon Barchia Mechagra was the author of the get from Surah, because Dilma Begam Parcho Ozal. Maybe he had a very fast horse, a camel. Maybe he had like a Ferrari camel. It can go very, very fast. Inami, Bikfitza, or maybe he did like some Harry Potter stuff. Remember Diagon Alley? Remember Diagon Alley? What was that stuff with the Weasleys? They had some kind of powder or something that they put into the fireplace, and then they would just end up in Diagon Alley, or was that what it was called, or some other place where they were supposed to go? And anyways, it was like Kfitza. You say some Kabbalistic stuff, and you end up, the next thing you know, one minute you're in Nahardoya, the next minute you're in Surah. So maybe you did some Kvitza stuff. Yinami Mili Moser, or sort of probably the most maybe practical answer might be this one, which is maybe simply, sure, Onon Barchia Mechagra may have been in Nahardoya, but maybe he sent people to write the document, and they were in Surah, right? They went to Surah, and that's where they wrote the document. So that's what they write in the document is Surah, even though the messenger, Onon Barchia Mechagra, was in Nahardoya. As Rav says to the scribes, Rav Huna l'Safrei, and Rav Huna also says to the scribes, Ki isnechu b'shili, sovu b'shili. that if you're in Shili, so write Shili on the document. My nephew, I think his best friend, her name is Shili. So so they would say, look, if you're in Shili, so then write Shili. Afagav d'mimtzur mili behini. Even though the document, right, the request to write the document was requested in Hini, but if you're going to be in Shili, so then write Shili. V'chiyisluchu behini. And if you're in Hini, ksovu behini, write Hini. Afagav d'mimtzur mili b'Shili. Even though the authorization to write the document came from Shili, but if you are in Hini, write Hini. And therefore, it could be that, yes, maybe there's another, but maybe, even though Anun Bar Chia was definitely in Nahar Doa that day, but maybe the people who were writing the document, the get, were in Surah, and that's why they wrote Surah. So therefore, says Rav, it's inconclusive. We cannot assume which Anun Bar Chia it was. Going back to the sesame seeds from yesterday. Now, we had some sesame seeds yesterday in a barrel of stuff. And the question is, the guy comes and he gives, he says, look, there was this amount of sesame seeds that you were watching for me, that I had over here, right, in such and such a barrel, these must be mine. The other guy says, no, I know what you're talking about, but these are different. I already cleared those out. These are different ones. So, what's the deal with the sesame seeds? Rav Yemar Amar Lo Chashinun. Rav Yemar says we're not concerned that they're different sesame seeds. These are his sesame seeds. Ravina Amar Chashinun. Ravina says we have to be concerned that they got swapped. V'ochso Chashinun. The halacha is that we have to be concerned that the sesame seeds got swapped. Tata Beinu Levena V'chulei. So the Mishnah had said that if there was fighting between the husband and the wife, so then we cannot trust her. Right, to say that he was dispatched to Wellwood, because maybe on account of the fighting, it's not, maybe he is taka not in Wellwood, maybe he's alive. The Gemara is going to discuss this now. So what exactly, first of all, is this kind of a fight? Beino levena, between him and her. If they're fighting and she says, divorce me, that means that it's a real fight. They say, what do you mean? Women always say that. They get in a fight and they say, divorce me. That's not such a big deal. Rather, it's talking about if she says to her husband, you have divorced me. You have divorced me already. So then why don't we believe her that she's divorced? Because after Rav Hamnuna says, that if a woman says to her husband, right to his face, you have divorced me, she's believed that she has that they are divorced. Because right, a woman is not going to look her husband straight in the eyes and say, you have divorced me, if it's not true. If she's looking him straight in the eyes and saying, you divorced me, we believe her that she's divorced. So rather, but Omer is girashtani. I forgot to put my phone on silent. Alright, I'll take care of that in a minute. But Omer is girashtani bifnei ploni ufloni. Rather, it's talking about a situation where she says to her husband, you divorced me in front of so-and-so and so-and-so. V'sha'elna, and we asked them, v'amu lo hayu dvarim me'elam, and they said, no, this never happened. That is the situation where we consider it to be a fight. If she said that we got divorced in front of certain witnesses, but the witnesses said that it never happened, then it means that there's simply a fight there, and we can't necessarily trust her. My time diktata, what's the reason why if there's a fight, can we not trust her? That her, if she comes and says that her husband was dispatched to Wellwood, so then why can't we trust her? So Rav Chanina Omar Mishum de Mishakra. So Rav Chanina says, because we have to be concerned that maybe she's being untruthful. She's upset. She's saying that that he's gestorben, just to sort of get away from him. Rav Shimi Bar Ashi Omar Mishum de Omar b'Didami, because she might not be looking at the facts so carefully, right? Meaning if they're in a fight, then even if there's a hint that maybe he was dispatched to Wellwood, maybe this is just an opportunity for her to get away from him, and then she might not actually research it so well to check and see if really he was dispatched to Wellwood. My benai was enough kamina. Depends if he started it. If he started it, so then maybe she might not be so upset as though to lie, but she might still at the same time maybe won't necessarily look into the details so detailfully. Ibailu, They asked the kasha, Eid echad b'ktatamau. What about an Eid echad in the context of a fight? So you have the husband and wife, they're in a fight, and then who shows up? I mean, they got in a fight, and then he goes on a trip somewhere, and then guess who shows up? A witness who says that her husband was dispatched to Wellwood. So, my time Eid echad, so what's the rationale behind why we believe or go with an Eid echad in the first place? Mehem, why is he believed? Mishum demilso David legluye lo mishaker. Is it because, well, what the witness is saying, which is that he's dead, is something that can very easily be proven wrong if he walks in the door the next day, and therefore achanami lo mishaker. So he's not going to lie because he can, it's risky. If he turns up the next day, this guy was turned into a fraud. Right? Or is the reason behind an Eid echad because, well, he sort of says, look, your husband was dispatched to Wellwood, and she's going to kind of take it from there and really be sure that he was dispatched to Wellwood, because after all, we saw like in, Ha'isha Rabbah, we saw a few weeks ago that if he shows up the next day, then she doesn't get a ksuba and all sorts of things. She's also to both of them, right? All sorts of things. So therefore, she's going to be careful. But over here, since they're fighting, she's not going to be careful. So take it, we don't necessarily know which way it swings. Rabbi Yehuda had said in the Mishnah that a woman is only believed to say that her husband was dispatched to Wellwood if she shows up and she looks shver, she looks shvach, she looks modno. She comes to Bezdin, she's crying. Her clothes are torn. She doesn't know what she's going to do. That is ritzini. That is okay. Clearly, she must know that her husband was really dispatched to Wellwood. Tanya Amrullah Rabbi Yehuda, they said to Rabbi Yehuda, if that's the case, then a pikachas will be able to get remarried because, she'll come, she'll look very sad, she'll look like a nebuch. And we'll say, okay, fine, you pass, you can go get remarried. But shota lo tinose, but a shota, she may always be kind of looking disheveled. So, what do we do in that case? Elo achazov tinose. Rather, says the rabbi, look, whether you come up looking disheveled or whether you don't look disheveled, the point is that we trust a woman who says that her husband was dispatched to Wellwood. So we trust her, disheveled or not disheveled. There was a woman who came to the Beis Din of Rabbi Yehuda. I don't know what I said. What? Rabbi Yehuda. Amrei la. So they sort of gave her some tips. They said, Safti bailech, look, when Rabbi Yehuda gets here, eulogize your husband, say how terrible it is that he died. Kari manayich, tear your clothing. Sasri mazayich, get your hair looking all terrible, right? Because if you don't do that, then Rabbi Yehuda is not gonna let you get remarried. Alfua shikra. The rabbi said, what? Are they teaching her to lie? So rather, inu krabon svirlu amri tayvirachi keichite disharia. Look, they held like the rabbis that you really don't need to put on this whole show. But the thing is, it was the Beis Din of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda holds that you do need to look the part. Therefore, they said, look, we hold like the rabbis, we trust you, but we also want you to be able to get remarried, so just, tear your clothing, look terrible, look sad, so that Rabbi Yehuda will let you get remarried. Says the new Mishnah, Beis Hillel, says Beis Hillel, Lo shamaynu ela beba min ha-kotzir, uva medina uchmaisa shahoyo. So Beis Hillel says, look, when we say that we trust a woman who says that her husband was dispatched to Wellwood, so it's actually only in a specific case. If she says that he died when he was coming back from harvesting wheat, Medina, and in a certain place. Just like the story that happened. We're going to see in a few minutes what the story that happened is. Shammai says to Beis Hillel, no, whether he's coming from harvesting wheat, whether he's coming from harvesting olives, whether he's harvesting grapes, whether it's from some other country. When the rabbis mentioned wheat, it was only because that was where the story happened. Again, we'll see the story in a minute, but it really yeah, sure, the incident was with wheat, but it could really be with anything. Wait, where am I? In the end, Beis Hillel actually changed their mind to hold like Beis Shammai. Says the Gemara, Tanya, Amuloim Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai says to Beis Hillel, Devrechem, according to you, Beis Hillel, Ein li alakot k'tzir chitim. All I know is harvesting wheat. K'tzir sa'orim. What about harvesting barley? Minayin. How do I know about that? Ve'en li alakotzer. All I know is harvesting. Botzer. What about grapes? Mosek. What about olives? Goder. What about, I think it's dates, oder, figs. Minayin. What about all these things? Look, the incident that happened was with harvesting wheat, but it applies to any activity. And also, sure, the incident happened in a certain place, but it really applies to any place. So Beis Hillel that Beis Hillel says that wait 1 second. I mean, but also Medina, meaning the place where she lives. Right now, so Beis Hillel says, look, the place where she lives, she's concerned that if he's really alive, so then she'll get busted. But if she's in some kind of faraway place, then she's not really concerned that she'll be exposed, and therefore, says Beis Hillel, Dafka has to be in the same place, I guess where she's from or where he's from. Beis Shammai says, look, people are traveling all the time, so it doesn't really matter where she is trusted if she says that her husband died, because if he was alive in some other place, people travel, and if she wasn't telling the truth, she'll be exposed anyways. My Ma'aseh Shayid, what's the story that we're talking about? Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Shilfei kot k'tzir chitin ayu. It was at the end of a wheat harvest. V'alchu asar b'nei adam liktzor chitin, and 10 people went to harvest wheat. Nashchu nachash lechod mein, and a snake bit one of them. Vames, and he died. Uvas ishto v'odeh levezdin, and a woman came and told Bezdin that her husband died, bitten by a snake on the, as part of the wheat harvest. V'shalchu umatzu kitvareh, and they sent and they found that it was like she said, that he was dead. And at that time they said, and at that time they concluded that if a woman comes and says that her husband is dead, she can get remarried, or if there's no children and there's a brother, so she does yibum. So we rely upon her testimony. Let's say that there's the machlokas that we're going to see in a second between Reb Chananya ben Akiva and the Rabbanon is just like the machlokas that we just saw between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai about can you apply one incident more generally or only in sort of the same context in which the incident happened. The Tanya is, we learn in the Brisa, Lo yisa adam mechatas ve'efer chatas. A fellow should not bring water that was mixed together with the ashes of the paraduma or the ashes of the paraduma themselves. Ve'avirim b'yardin v'asfina. You should not take them in a boat across the Jordan. He shouldn't stand on one side of the Jordan and throw it to the other side of the Jordan, which is similar to like kind of taking a boat, meaning it doesn't go on the ground at all. It kind of, floats in the air or is like floating on the water in a boat. Don't float them on the water. Don't put it on top of an animal or on top of your friend. Unless his feet were touching the ground, because in that case it's not like floating like a boat. But you can cross the Jordan on a bridge with this Efer Mechatas and Mechatas and Efer Chatas. Echad Yarden ve'echad Sharnairis, and this applies to the Jordan River and also to other rivers. So we see that the Chachamim are applying this more generally, and we're going to see that there was an incident that happened specifically on a boat in the Jordan, but the rabbis are applying this more generally and saying don't even throw it, and whether it's the Jordan, whether it's any river. Reb Chananya ben Akiva Omer, Lo amru ela yardinu basfinu ch'ma'aseh she'aya, whereas Reb Chananya says, no, the only place where we do not sort of transport the mechatas and the efer chatas is on a boat in the Jordan, just like the incident. So let's say that the rabbis who are applying this incident more broadly, who are extending this incident more broadly, hold like Beis Shammai, who say that, who extend the story of the harvest and the guy who got bit by a snake more broadly. And let's say there are Hanania ben Akiva, who's saying, no, it's exactly like the incident, would hold like Beis Hillel, who says like it's exactly like the incident. Amrilach Rabbanim, whereas the rabbis would say, Beis Hillel. They say, no, we are completely in line with Beis Hillel. The only reason why Beis Hillel said in the situation of the woman who's claiming that her husband is dead, it's because in that story, the Beis Hillel is concerned that, if she's going to claim that her husband is dead, she can sort of claim that freely in some place far away where nobody knows her husband or nobody's ever going to prove her wrong. So therefore we need it to be close by. But the rabbis would say that in the case of the Efer Chatas and Mei Chatas, what's there to be scared about? Right? So therefore we can extend it more broadly. Why should Beis Hillel care if you're transporting Mei Chatas and Efer Chatas in the Jordan or other rivers? Reb Chananya ben Akiva Amalach, Ana Da'ami Afilu Afle Beis Shammai. Reb Chananya ben Akiva, who says that no, it's specifically a boat across the Jordan, would say that even Beis Shammai, who extends more broadly by the woman claiming that her husband is dead, he would say that in this case it would have to be more specific, because Adkan Lukami Beis Shammai Asum Elimshim de Ihi Daiko Minsaba. When it comes to a woman claiming that her husband is dead, she's going to do the research to make sure that he's really dead. Mali makum karev, mali makum rachok. In which case, who cares if it's close or far? She's going to do her research. But over here, where it comes to the Mei Chatas and the Efer Chatas that the rabbi said don't transport these things, it's only in the specific case that they say don't transport these things. But in other rivers where this incident did not happen, the rabbis did not make their gezerim. My Maisa Shoy, what's this story that happened with Mei Chatas and Efer Chatas? Dom Rav Yudah Amarav, Maisa Badam Shoy, Maiver Mei Chatas Ve'Efer Chatas B'Yardin V'Sfina, that there was a story. And in this story, there was a fellow who was transporting water that had ashes of the paraduma in it, as well as ashes of the paraduma themselves, across the Jordan in a boat. And it turned out that there was a kazayis of a corpse in the bottom of the boat, and basically it made an oil ames, and all of the Efer Chatas and Mei Chatas became Tamei. And they said at that point, Lo yisa adam Mei Chatas ve'Efer Chatas ve'Yavirim b'Yardin v'Sfina. A person should not transport the Mei Chatas or Efer Chatas in a boat across the Jordan. And the question is it limited only to in a boat across the Jordan, or does it really apply in any means of transportation similar to a boat across any river, not just the Jordan? That was the machlokas between the Rabbanan and Reb Chananya ben Akiva. Friends, that was Daf Kuf Tez Vav Masechta Yevamos. I thought it was a very interesting daf. The beginning of the daf started with the sugya of, right, if we hear that a certain individual died, right, in our case it was Yitzchak Reish Gelusa Bar Achte de Bevai, found out that he died. Can we assume that this is the Rav Yitzchak Reish Gelusa Bar Achte de Bevai that we know, and to allow his wife to get remarried? Or do we have to be concerned that it's a different one? Abai says we have to be concerned that it's a different one. Rava says that we do not need to be concerned that it is a different one. Interestingly, there was another situation where there was a get, a bill of divorce, and there were sort of two possibilities of who it could be. And in that case, Abaye actually said that the opposite, that basically in that case it was with Rav Anan Bar Chia, and there was another Anan Bar Chia. In that case, Abaye says, yeah, but we knew for sure that the other Anan Bar Chia was somewhere else, therefore we can assume that it's the Anan Bar Chia that we know. Whereas Rava, in this case, said, no, we do have to be concerned that it's actually the other one, because, maybe, for example, he gave authority for people to write it in Surah, even though he was not in Surah at the time. And then we saw machlokas between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel about, when a woman says that her husband died, is it like only when it's in the same place that he lived, and people can come and, where she has to be concerned that she could be proved wrong, or could it be like in any place? Initially, Beis Hillel was sort of limiting it. Beis Shammai was extending it more broadly. We said in the end that Beis Hillel agreed with Beis Shammai. Friends, that was Daf Kuf Tez Zayin. Daf 116 of Masechta Yevamos. Hope you enjoyed it. Peace out.